Hey everybody, I've had some requests to kind of get an overview of the model railroad that my group and I work on. So I'm here at the home of my friend who owns the model railroad, the UPSF joint line. And we'll start out by walking in, and we're always greeted by our railroad signal here. These are GRS model SA1 signal heads. These were retired from the BNSF up in the Chicago area, and we rescued them and they found a new home here. The signal aspects actually do tell us something about the day's work. If we have a clear signal, then we know we're running trains, and anything less than that could be just test nights or work nights or anything like that. So it gives people an idea when they're driving down the driveway, what we're going to be doing tonight. So that's the signal, so we can change the aspects there, and we'll show that on the way out. So we'll go inside and take a good look at the model railroad that we work on down in the basement. So we'll walk up the sidewalk here and head in the front door. Get downstairs. It's kind of cold out today. Crisp, cool January. Go in the front door here. And the model railroad is down in the basement. So we'll go down here. Have our sign there that reminds us where the trains are. As we descend down in here to the basement, the railroad's to the left there, but I'll turn to the right here. We have our family room slash, it's kind of been taken over as our crew lounge. We've got our trusty TV and DVD player, place for food and snacks, our crew dispatch board, and display case, of course, with items that people in the group can sell. So that's handy to have too. I heard it referred as a water tower on another guy's video, so I think that's fitting. We've got our refrigerator full of our drinks, non-alcoholic of course. Guests are free to enjoy a drink while they do that. We walk into the layout room here, and we start out. This is Frisco Yard. It's kind of empty right now, but this is a busy place during operating sessions, and it's a yard where there's a workspace aisle behind it. That way a yardmaster can be in the pit and operating from there. Got a couple of industries that are served out of this yard, as well as a very large grain elevator. This here is Lewis Grain. It was built by one of the volunteers here, Miles Lewis, and so he built that. And then as we work our way around, the aisle kind of turns into some desert scenery area here. This peninsula loops over itself and it crosses itself at grade here. This is Charles Interlocking. The abandoned Interlocking Tower was built and painted and detailed by one of our members, Herb Henson. You actually may remember seeing his layout on an earlier Signal Up Productions video. He built that. Since the interlocker tower is abandoned, then the signals at this interlocker operate in automatic mode, just like the real thing. And as well as the real thing, we have a key release box in case the signal doesn't grant as you approach the interlocker. Then you can operate the key and get the route that you need, just like the prototype. Abandoned spur here with some abandoned cars, just like it may be out in the desert somewhere. As we follow the layout around, we can see how the main line loops over across itself once more. You'll actually see here this abandoned stretch of track. If you are familiar with any of our videos on my channel, and you're familiar with the UPSF joint line layout, primarily the cab ride video I uploaded a few years ago, you may remember that this is actually the original main line. For the past 6 months we've been reconstructing portions of the layout and realigning the main line to be a little more logical, fit a little better with our operating practices. So since the main line has been realigned over to the new bridge, as you can see, it's not even been scenic yet. The old main line is actually abandoned. So as we come around here, this is where a portion of the main line underneath goes underneath Frisco, where it loops over and under itself. A couple of new industries that are being constructed here. Behind the partition we have our staging yard. Originally this was 4 inches lower. We raised it up to match with the new alignment. Underneath is actually another 4-track stub end staging yard now. So we've added some more staging. All trains start and stop from the staging. This staging is called Vincennes. And as we come around here, as the back track is elevated now, originally the main line was level on the main deck of the main layout. So by raising that up, we've been able to do a grade separation, which had caused us a headache for a long time. And so now we've got what we call the new shelf. Cantilevers over the original main line, so we could separate those two out. So the shelf is called Flora. And then the main yard here we call Argentine. This is a very large yard. A lot of classification takes place here during a normal operating session. Any given time there's about 600 or so freight cars on the layout. And good portion of those move during a normal 4 to 6 hour long operating session. Caboose tracks, locomotive servicing facility. This is the 130-foot Walther's turntable. Uses the control block center here to operate the turntable. A variety of steam locomotives that we keep around there. There's a wall here where the main line comes into what we call the Helix room. You'll see why here in just a second. A lot of the work that I do, building signals and working on engines and whatnot, takes place here, and a lot of my signals are tested on my test diorama. New shelf again above the old original portion of the main line, when we're able to finally see the Helix. And I don't recall who made this Helix, but I can ask Lee, the owner, and I can add that into the comments later. So if anybody's curious on that, but it's made of plastic, and it just all screws together, fits together in a specific radius, and that way you've got the a very uniform incline all the way up. We'll see where that goes in just a minute. Coming out of the Helix room, we come back into the layout room, and we've got the Purina industrial facility here. A lot of switching takes place here. Main line loops around itself again. Formerly we called this Tehachapi loop because of the way that the main line circles around itself. And as we've been operating more and more and getting more people involved in the group, we realize that maybe Tehachapi loop's not quite the right name for it. So during the realignment, we renamed some things as well to better fit the group and how we like to run our trains. So this has been renamed to Williams Loop after one of the other members who's part of our group. And I think in the future we're going to put a lot more trees and possibly some snow and other items like that on the hill. This hill's actually made of styrofoam, and the entire thing is removable in the chance that we need to get inside and reach back and do some work over by the black trestle bridge in the back there. This entire mountain lifts out and just rests across the aisle temporarily while we can do some work. Main line loops around. Got another industrial facility here. A couple of industries that we can switch. The main line splits right here at the tunnel portal. That switch there diverges where the main line loops around either to Argentine Yard or turns to the right to go up to the Helix. And we'll see where that goes now. Up the Helix to the upper deck is a stub end branch line. The Helix room's not scenic, by the way, because there's supposed to be a curtain there at the doorway. This is just not part of the modeled layout. It's just a way for trains to get around, and we didn't want to have to deal with the headache of how do you scenic a Helix. So I know there's some options for that, but that just wasn't what we were doing. So the upper deck has a couple of storage tracks. Primarily, the upper deck gets us to the coal mine, and paired with the coal mine on this end is a power plant down there on the other end. So our loaded trains get pulled out here and can run around the railroad and then come back, and they get shoved in at the end of the power plant. Same with the empty trains. They come out of the power plant, run around the railroad, and then get shoved in here at the coal mine. So that way we don't have to load and unload our coal hoppers, and it still makes sense because you've got the loaded trains coming out of the mine and the empty trains coming out of the power plant. So that's mainly what takes place up here. We do have a few signals on the upper deck. These are the Atlas signals and Atlas detection signal boards. So they just run on ABS signals. The actual main track authority is handled through track warrant control. The branch line, this upper deck branch line, runs around through a mountain. Another siding and storage track. And then the grain train from the grain elevator down below comes up here to the modeled building flat there in the background, another grain elevator. And finally comes to our storage shelf here, which includes a 3-track stub end staging yard here, and it is connected to the layout by a drop leaf. We close the door. The drop leaf here swings up, locks into place with the latch, run the train over, and then drop it back out of the way. It works pretty good. Yeah, the other thing I was going to show you is that we can operate the railroad with a nighttime operating session. We've got nighttime lights around the railroad and several other buildings that are lit up. So we'll show you how that looks with the lights off. I'll even go ahead and close the door. We use cheap flashlights from local big box retailer as our lanterns, as the crews can use while they're going around to check car numbers and things like that. Signals on the railroad really pop out during our nighttime run sessions as well. So good stuff. Let me show you one other thing that's lit up in the dark over here on the other side of the railroad. It's usually a big eye catcher. Got our neon flashing lights on top of the grain elevator. And the fire scene, pretending that there's a small fire in one of the grain dryers here. So we've got those lit up too. We can turn on and off. Let's see, what else do I need to show you? Oh yes. We use JMRI operations for our switch list, and as such, we got these ticket holders from a restaurant supply company, like what you would see in a restaurant where you just slide your tickets up in there. So all of our paperwork is easy to do that, so we don't have to carry around like a clipboard or nothing like that. Of course, here we've got the signal indication sheet for the operators that are interested in knowing what the different signal indications mean. For uncoupling and coupling cars, we use bamboo skewers. You can see it's painted safety orange on the tip and the end there, and those are just randomly laid around the layout. Have a complement of Kato re-railers that we use for putting equipment back on the track. Throttle pockets, that's pretty normal stuff. And then, oh, I know what we'll do. Go into the dispatcher office, which is back around the corner here, and in the dispatcher room, which is also our workshop when we're not operating. The dispatcher sits in here. He can control the entire main level of the layout, track all the trains on the CTC portion of the railroad, and then the track warrant control software, we usually have that set up on the other screen there, and he can run the track warrants for the trains going up on the stub end branch line, and then keep the trains moving on the main portion of the main line, which again is CTC controlled. I developed the graphics that I used on the panel here. I'm using JMRI for the logic, and then we're using Digitrax hardware to actually interface it to the railroad. So this computer is connected to the PR3 right here. PR3 is connected to the local net, which then goes into the main railroad room. And then the local net is connected to the Digitrax control boards, 2 of them in particular. We're using the BDL 168 block detection boards, and it detects 16 block detections. And then the signals themselves are actually controlled by the SE8C signal driver board, and that board can control 32 heads with that we have on the railroad. Most of the signals were built by me, the searchlights and the Type Ds and the Type Gs and whatnot. There's a few commercial signal heads around the railroad. Well, have a working semaphore here. That was made by NJ International, I believe. That's a very nice signal. We've got a couple of BLMA signals that are still on the railroad here, and they work okay. So we've got that. And a lot of the signals that I built just from scratch, and they're okay too. A little bit cheaper than the BLMAs. So that's pretty well the railroad, and a normal operating night is very hectic, so I thought I'd bring you down here where there wasn't anybody and we could just kind of walk around and see the railroad as a whole. I'll finish off by going out the other door and showing you the Progressive Industrial Park. Very complex switching area based on the Progressive Park. I think it was a model railroader several years ago. Track plan and some of the industries that they had in the article, so that was recreated here to some degree. And my friend Herb, he runs this yard like a genius when we're doing our running sessions, and he just runs this yard, so he's good at that. That's pretty well the railroad. This is the UPSF joint line. The newest addition to our switching is a auto plant that is under construction now. It'll probably be done in a few months, and it connects in with the upper deck back in the Helix room, and it's just a stub end for switching out auto parts and new automobiles in their auto racks. That's the railroad. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed already to the channel, please consider doing that. And that way you always get the latest notifications for any new videos that I upload. And you'll notice that a lot of the videos on my channel are a wide variety of railroad related content. Model railroad, rail fanning, railroad history, railroad museums, backyard railroading, all the good stuff. So be sure you subscribe to the channel and maybe share this video around with your friends. Thanks for watching.